The road to the 2020 Kentucky Derby continues. Today we're going to take a look back at the Robert B. Lewis Stakes and also the Swale Stakes from Gulfstream Park. A couple of impressive winners, including Mischevious Alex, who took the Swale Stakes, winning impressively by over 4 lengths. And this was just really a dominating performance, kind of a performance that was a little bit hard to gauge coming into the race. He'd had some big races, and he really just took to the surface that day. A couple of his competition did not fire their best races, but really this was all, at the end of the day, when you look at this performance by Mischevious Alex, he ran just a hole in the wind, and it's the type of race that's going to lead him on to the Gotham Stakes. They have announced that that's the next spot that they're going to point for on the Triple Crown Trail. The Gotham Stakes, of course, a 1-mile race at Aqueduct, and that's next up for Mischevious Alex. On the other hand, Necker Island never really fired in the Swale Stakes, and also it was kind of a disappointing effort from Greenlight Go, although you weren't quite sure he was totally cranked for this race. He ran evenly, and then before they really had a chance to answer the question, Mischevious Alex was just gone on a turn. So then I think they just kind of wrapped him up and really didn't push him late. So Greenlight Go is still kind of an unknown. The horse that maybe has a little bit of an excuse here is Untitled. He was bet down pretty favored almost at the windows, and he had a slightly slow start, got kind of in the middle of the pack, and then, you know, bounced around a little bit, but really down the lane didn't show much. So I think it's one of those trips where you can maybe play him in the right spot, but it's going to have to be a smaller field and something where I think you'd probably want him on the outside of the speed. He just seems to be like one of those horses that needs to have everything going his own way, but it's hard to get a gauge after just 2 races as well. Meanwhile, out west at Santa Anita, it was a 3-horse battle down the lane and a 3-horse battle at the betting windows. Going into the race, 1,000 Words was your morning line favorite. High Velocity and Tis a Magician were expected to be the 2nd and 3rd favorites, and that's pretty much how the betting went. It was 1,000 Words opening up at 1-2 on the betting. He was hammered down in the pick 3s and the doubles, and 1,000 Words, most of the betting was 3-5, and then late High Velocity went from 4-1 all the way down to 5-2 at the final flash and during the in-race running. Meanwhile, out of the gate, Tis a Magician took the quick early lead, established position out of the gate, and then High Velocity, who had a good start, kind of came over and did the crossover in front of him and established that rail position. Then it was in 2nd place, Tis a Magician, chased a little bit. Meanwhile, 1,000 Words kind of got off to a good start. They relaxed, kind of late at the rail. Royal Act went up on the outside of him. So it was a little bit of a tough trip, maybe not a rough trip, but actually not an advantageous trip for 1,000 Words, as he had to settle and he had a rail trip, but he was inside Royal Act. Now going into the turn, Tis a Magician put on just enough pace pressure to make High Velocity kind of kick in going into the turn, and that ultimately may have cost High Velocity 2nd place finish. Coming into the stretch, it was Royal Act with that 3-wide move, and then 1,000 Words kind of went up along the inside, had just a second where he had to hesitate, kind of got boxed in, and then kind of just grinded down and emerged the victory here over a hard-charging Royal Act for 2nd. High Velocity fell back to 3rd. So a couple of horses here. You know, High Velocity, I think I'm still going to give one more chance to. He's had back-to-back trips where he's been that pace setter, and he's gotten harassed enough on the front end where he's never been able to really relax. And both times he lost to his stablemate 1,000 Words. But you give him a race where he's the lone speed or he's actually able to relax on that backstretch, and I think High Velocity could kick in and be a pretty good winner here at 1 1/8. He could be the type of horse that goes to a track like Sunland and wins the Sunland Derby. Meanwhile, 1,000 Words, kind of mixed opinions on him from many different sources. Some people were impressed with the victory. Others thought it was kind of more workmanlike. Some people are calling him a grinder. You know, I can go both ways with 1,000 Words. Really, this was the same exact trip as the Los Al Futurity. I could argue that 1,000 Words had every right to lose this race, just like he had every right to lose the Los Al Futurity. Annie Dior came up on him, and he lost the lead, but he gamely came back. And the same thing here. High Velocity cleared him. And at the top of the stretch, when he had just that little bit of trouble, a lot of horses would have just spit out the bit and not wanted to go in between horses and really grind out a victory like this. He was hit about 4 times down the stretch. Workmanlike, yeah, you could call it that. Is he a grinder? Maybe. The gallop out, though, he ran evenly with Royal Axe, so he looks like he's a long-winded stayer. I don't see him with that brilliant type of speed like Tiz the Law has. I don't see him with that crossover speed like Dennis the Moment type has. But definitely he's one of the top 6-7 contenders. And when you look at the current leaderboard for the Road to Kentucky Derby 2020, still Storm the Court leading the way, but now with 20 points for 1,000 words on the Kentucky Derby Trail. So that's a look back at the Robert B. Lewis and the Swale Stakes. Who did you like in the Robert B. Lewis? Were you impressed with 1,000 words or high velocity? And what about the Swale Stakes? What did you think of Mischevious Alex? Leave a comment below, smash that like button, and hit subscribe as we lead you up to the 2020 Kentucky Derby. We've also got race recaps of Taraz's impressive debut for 2020, and also recap making it 4 for 4 on the year, tonalist shape, and a Withers recap with the victorious victor by Max Player, who's now pointing for the Wood Memorial. That's a look back at the Swale Stakes and the Robert B. Lewis Stakes at Santa Anita.